My sister secretly sold our late grandmother's house. Then, with a smug smile, she told me, "You'll never get a single cent from it." I felt heartbroken until the new owner called me. "You should come over," he said. "I found something in the attic that changes everything." When my sister saw it, she collapsed in shock. In that moment, I had never hated her more. We stood in Grandma's old living room, the one with the creaky wooden floors and ugly green wallpaper she had kept for 50 years. The house smelled the same, like old books and lavender. It had always been my safe place, but now, it wasn't ours anymore. "I sold it," my sister, Claire, said, crossing her arms. Her chin was raised like she dared me to argue. I stared at her, confused. "What do you mean, you sold it?" She sighed dramatically. "The house, Grandma's house, it's gone. The new owners move in next week." It felt like the floor had vanished under me. "You can't do that. We agreed we'd decide together." She smirked, that same cruel look she always had when she wanted to hurt me. "No, you assumed we'd decide together, but Grandma made me the executor of the will, so I sold it. And by the way," she leaned in, her voice full of fake sympathy, "you're not getting a penny." I wanted to scream. This house wasn't just a building to me, it held our family's memories, our childhood, our summers baking cookies with Grandma, the place I stayed when my life fell apart. It was the only place that had ever felt like home. And she sold it behind my back. I clenched my fists. "Why would you do this?" Claire shrugged. "It was old and ugly, and I needed the money. Simple." I was speechless. She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. You know Grandma always loved me more. She wanted me to have a better life." Then she smiled, and I wanted to wipe that smug grin off her face. "You'll never see a dime." I walked out. If I stayed, I might say something I'd regret. For weeks, I tried to move on. I told myself it was just a house, just walls and a roof. But I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Claire didn't care. She was too busy spending her money, posting pictures of vacations and shopping sprees like she hadn't just broken our family apart. Then, one night, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Hello? Hi, is this my name?" "Yes, who is this?" "My name's Henry. I just bought your grandmother's house." I felt a lump in my throat. "Oh. I know this is strange, but I found something in the attic. I think you should come over." I frowned. "What is it?" He paused, then he said something that sent chills down my spine. "I think it changes everything." I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my keys and drove over as fast as I could. When I arrived, the house no longer felt like home. The porch light was on, but the windows were dark and empty. A man in his 40s, wearing a baseball cap, stood by the door. "I wasn't sure if I should call you," he said, "but once I found it, I figured you'd want to see." "What did you find?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just led me up the narrow stairs to the attic. The pull-down ladder creaked as we climbed. The attic smelled like dust and old wood. Boxes were stacked to the ceiling, and old furniture was covered in sheets. In the far corner, a trunk sat under a moth-eaten blanket. The lid was already open. Inside the trunk, wrapped in old yellow cloth, was an envelope. It was thick and heavy. Henry handed it to me. "Go ahead." I took a deep breath and opened it. Inside was a stack of papers. As I read the first few lines, my heart stopped. It was another will. A different will. Dated 2 years after the one my sister used to sell the house. And this one left everything to me. My hands shook. "This can't be real," I whispered. Henry crossed his arms. "I thought the same thing, but I had a friend check it. He's a lawyer. He says it looks real." My mind raced. How was this up here, hidden away? And then I realized. Claire. She had been the one handling all of Grandma's papers. She was the one in charge of the legal stuff. She must have found this will, and hidden it. She knew. She knew Grandma had changed her mind and left everything to me. And instead of telling me, she buried it, sold the house, took the money. I felt sick. Henry must have noticed my face because he cleared his throat. "Look, I don't know the full story, but if this will is real, what she did is fraud." I swallowed hard. "Yeah," I whispered, "it is." That night, I couldn't sleep. I read through the will again and again. I took pictures, sent them to a lawyer friend. He called me at 6 a.m. "This is real," he said, "and if your sister knew about it and still sold the house, she's in serious trouble." I barely heard the rest. My fingers were already dialing CLA's number. She picked up on the 4th ring, her voice groggy and annoyed. "What do you want?" "You knew." My voice was too calm. She was quiet for a moment, then she scoffed. "Knew what?" "Grandma's real will." Silence. Then a nervous laugh. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "You lied," I said, anger shaking my voice. You found the real will, didn't you? And instead of telling me, you hid it. You sold the house and took all the money, knowing it wasn't yours. More silence. Then she said something that made my blood boil. Prove it. I hung up. Because that's exactly what I was going to do. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. Instead, I went straight to a lawyer. The moment he saw the will, his eyes widened. This changes everything, he said. If your sister knew about this, she committed fraud. And that house? It wasn't hers to sell, it was yours. He acted fast. A lawsuit against CLA. A motion to take back the house. A demand for every penny she stole. This time, she wouldn't get away with it. I knew Claire would be angry, but I wasn't ready for what happened next. As soon as she got the legal papers, she lost it. She called me, screaming, "You have no right." I laughed. No right? You stole from me, you lied, and now you're going to pay for it. She hung up. Days passed, then weeks. And then, the real shock came. My lawyer looked deeper into the case, and what he found, Claire didn't just hide one will, she did something worse. She had faked the will she used. The signature? Fake. The witnesses? Fake. The entire document? A lie. Now, she wasn't just facing a lawsuit, she was facing prison. I'll never forget the moment Claire realized she had lost. We were sitting in the lawyer's office. She was pale, shaking, gripping the chair so tightly her nails dug into the wood. My lawyer laid out everything, the real will, the forgery, the proof of fraud. Then he leaned in and said, very calmly, "You have two choices, return everything or go to jail." Claire turned to me, opening and closing her mouth like she wanted to argue, but then she saw my face. And she knew. Her body slumped, her hands shook. And then, she collapsed in the chair. For the first time, she realized she wasn't going to get away with it. She had no choice, she returned the money. The house? The courts gave it back to me. Henry, the man who bought it, was actually relieved. He didn't want to be involved in a fraud case. As for Claire, she lost everything, her money, her reputation, and her freedom. In the end, karma caught up with her. I thought it was over. I thought Claire had finally learned her lesson. I was wrong. 3 months later, my lawyer called me. And what he told me changed everything. "Hey," he said, sounding serious, "we have a problem." I sat up. "What now?" He sighed, "Claire's not done messing with you." My jaw tightened. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then he said, "We looked into her finances. Turns out she moved all the money before the court order came down." My stomach dropped. What? She sent it to an offshore account and then pretended she was broke. I felt like I was going to explode. She had only returned enough money to make it look like she was following the rules. The rest? She hid it. Claire had pulled one last trick. But this time, I wouldn't let her get away with it. I met with my lawyer, and we made a plan. Claire was arrogant. She thought she was the smartest person in the room. So to catch her, I had to play dumb. I called her. "Hey," I said, pretending to sound defeated, "can we meet?" She actually laughed. "Feeling generous now? Too bad. You got your money, we're done." I gritted my teeth. "Please, let's just talk." She sighed dramatically. "Fine, but don't waste my time." She had no idea I was about to waste hers. We met at a small cafe downtown. Claire walked in wearing designer sunglasses and carrying a brand new purse, bought with stolen money. She smirked as she sat down. "So, what do you want?" I played my part. I don't want to fight anymore. This whole court thing has been exhausting." She sipped her coffee, looking smug. "Well, that's what happens when you drag family into legal battles." I nearly choked on my drink. She was acting like the victim. I swallowed my anger and forced a smile. "Look, I just wanted to know, how did you do it?" She raised an eyebrow. "Do what?" I leaned in. "Come on, I know you still have the money. You were always the smart one. I just want to understand how you pulled it off." She studied me, trying to figure out if I was serious. Then she laughed. And then, she told me everything. She bragged about how she moved the money before the courts could freeze her accounts, how she used a friend's name for the offshore transfer, how she left just enough in her main account to make it look like she was following the rules. And now, I had all the proof I needed. Claire told me everything, thinking she was safe. She thought I was too stupid to fight back. What she didn't know. I was recording the whole thing. I sent the recording straight to my lawyer. 2 weeks later, Claire was in handcuffs. Fraud, money laundering, ignoring the court's orders. She didn't just lose the money, she lost her freedom. This time, there was no way out. The court took everything she owned. Her house? Gone. Her car? Taken. The money she hid? found and confiscated. She cried in court, begged for mercy. The judge didn't care. You showed no regret, he said. You stole from your own family, you lied, and now you'll pay the price. Claire was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And me? I walked out of that courtroom feeling lighter than ever. Claire had nothing left to steal. And I finally had justice. Claire was in jail, that should have been enough. But after everything she did, I needed to make sure she never got back on her feet. Claire always found a way to escape trouble. She could lie, charm, and trick people into believing she was the victim. Even in prison, I knew she'd find someone to manipulate. But not this time. She had one last backup plan, her friend Christina. Christina helped her hide the stolen money. She was the one whose name was on the secret accounts. The one Claire trusted to move the funds while she avoided the courts. If Christina wasn't caught, Claire would still have money waiting for her when she got out. So I did something Claire never saw coming. I took Christina down, too. I tipped off the police. I gave them everything, bank records, receipts, even messages between Claire and Christina planning their scam. Christina didn't last long. The moment she was arrested, she panicked. And she betrayed Claire completely. She told the police about every scam Claire had ever pulled, fake loans, unpaid debts, even a phony investment scheme from years ago. Turns out, Claire had a lot more secrets than I thought. Her 5-year sentence? Doubled. Claire wasn't getting out anytime soon. With both Claire and Christina in prison, I made sure there was nothing left for her. No money, the court took it all. No friends, Christina had turned on her. No home, her apartment was gone. Even if she got out early, she'd have nowhere to go. And the best part? She had to watch me win. While she sat in prison, I rebuilt Grandma's house. Everything Claire had ruined, I fixed. Every memory she tried to erase, I brought back. The house she stole from me? Now, it was mine, forever. And Claire? She had nothing. One day, she sent me a letter from prison. She begged for forgiveness, said she had changed. I didn't even open it. I sent it back. Because Claire? She wasn't worth my time anymore. She got exactly what she deserved. And for the first time in my life, I finally had peace. The end.